Hey guys, I hope this video finds you well. On this video I will be talking about the 5th episode of Cruel Summer. The episode is called As the Carny Gods Intended. So it's largely set at a fairground in different time frames again, and just a warning, if you haven't seen the episode yet, I will be going into full spoilers pretty early on, so just to watch out for that. Thanks. And I think this might be my favourite episode so far. It's certainly up there. And one thing I'll say is I think what this show does really great is just getting inside the teenage head, just getting inside their world and just capturing how they naturally sort of speak, or the sort of conversations that teenagers have, and just how I think different, you are at a certain time in your life, that certain age, compared to where you get a bit older. But another thing it does really well is then shifting to much darker moments. So you might have a scene with Jeanette and her friends bantering and sort of winding each other up, and it kind of captures how, in a way, that can go a little bit too far, how sometimes a little tease can lead to something. But obviously on the surface it's still very playful and funny, but then later on how it yeah, things can sort of change. And I'm going to talk about this in this review, because something that happens is we again just start to see just how Martin kind of targets his victims and how effective he kind of is at appearing very innocent, and then obviously not being so innocent. But anyway, the sort of thing I'm talking about is in the past with Mallory, Jeanette, and with Vincent, because you just get stuff like, basically Jeanette and Vincent are teasing Mallory about supposedly when she went on the date with this nerdy guy who we see in this episode, Gideon his name is. I have to say that's a very nerdy name. I mean, if you're gonna look for a name for a character who's meant to be a bit, of an outcast or a nerd, you're probably going to go for something like Gideon. But they're sort of teasing Mallory over it, and it's again very relatable, the sort of thing that friends kind of banter about. But the other thing is that because it was at the cinema apparently, and they're just joking about how, I mean, she went beyond first base sort of thing, which obviously Mallory denies, and it's all part of the teasing. But then there's stuff like Vincent and Jeanette just debating what each base means in terms of how far you're getting, and that stuff's really funny, and it's just the sort of natural banter you can imagine friends having. But it does lead to the fairground and the different jumping back and forth, and obviously the crucial stuff is in this past with what we see Martin, because he's hosting one of the stores. But as a subplot, they do have to take Gideon with them to the fairground, and Gideon has sort of latched on to Jeanette, and you get the impression that he's either got a bit of a crush on her, or just he's kind of attached himself to her, and sort of sees them as a gang as quite a cool gang to hang out with. So you kind of get that stuff as well. And I think what this episode does really effective with Martin is it sort of shows a pattern of him doing this stuff, suckering kids in, and where he almost is a very manipulative way of doing it. So he has this store and on the fairground, and he's purposely gone for one of those. It's the one, I'm not quite sure what you call it, but the one where you shoot water out of pistols, and the thing, it's like a blow up thing that enlarges the more you hit it, and obviously the first one to burst wins. So obviously the writers intentionally have gone for something really playful and cheesy like that, as a way to mask this real creep, this real predator. It's a great way to sort of, as a cover for him almost. And we just see ways that he sort of uses his power and his charms. At one point, he sees that Kate who's there, and she's like going through stuff and feels alone because she's essentially split up with Jamie and said, I don't want anything else to do with you, over the whole Jeanette thing. I'll talk more about that in a moment. But yeah, he latches onto that because she's alone, and he sort of charms her into coming along and having a go. And we just see various tactics that he uses, because at one point Gideon and Jeanette are like playing the game, and it's sort of this embarrassing thing because Jeanette gets distracted, and then I think because she sees that her friends are sort of watching, but then it leads to Gideon winning, and his celebration is so over the top. The way he just slaps it, that was like a comedy moment, obviously in something which is a little more sinister. But his celebration, jumping up in the air and screaming, was really funny. But it sort of embarrasses her, and again, I think this stuff is relatable too. Obviously, we've all kind of done it at some point, probably, where there is an image sort of thing, where if someone's seen as a bit of a nerd or an outcast, I think that there's just certain people we are embarrassed to be seen with. I'm not saying it's right, and but it's just part of growing up in some ways. But anyway, Jeanette gets embarrassed, and we get this other stuff with Jeanette and Kate, which again I'll circle back to in a minute. But later on in the episode, we see Martin essentially trying to befriend Gideon, and so it clearly paints this picture of he has targeted other kids, and he will target other kids. And we kind of know this because of this Annabelle girl who Kate claims she came across in the basement. So it just again builds this cycle with him and this pattern, which I think is really good background and storytelling. And at one point he tries to like befriend Gideon, and then later on, when that doesn't quite pan out, he like sees Jeanette and the others, and he calls Jeanette over like quite firmly, and he gives her a bit of a talking to over the way he treated Gideon. And I think it's an interesting scene because obviously what he's saying is right, like she did treat him bad and it's not the way to treat somebody, but obviously he's using it for his own like sinister like motives and using it as a power thing over her. And the scene itself gets like really creepy and unsettling because he's got like a scrunchie from when he was talking to Kate, which I'm assuming I don't know if like he made it so that he picked it up or if she just naturally left it there, but he's got her scrunchie, and just the way he's holding it is so creepy and disturbing, and it is like literally like he's fixated on it. And so when Jeanette's over, he because I think she noticed it in his hand and kind of asks about it, and he says, "Oh, I'm holding it for Kate. She left it here. I can give it to her at school." And Jeanette points out, "Well, I can do it," and sort of talks him into like handing it over. And what I like about this stuff is this is at a period before Jeanette has really spoken to Kate. I mean, not properly. I think the mall thing was like prior to this, but you're only talking about the odd word between them. They don't really know each other, which I think is obviously part of the drama as well when it comes to Jeanette latching on to Kate. But what I like about this stuff is it's this way to sort of connect them, where Jeanette sees this as an opportunity. I'll take the scrunchie. I'll see her at school. I can give it to her first. It's a way for her to like open up dialogue. So that's something which again is pretty realistic and relatable, where I think if you did fantasize about being in this world or being friends with someone. That is the sort of tactic you might sort of use, but it's also really just good sort of visual storytelling, because it's a way to connect like the past and the present sort of thing, or whatever the case may be, because in this there's like this link where Kate has like, it's in the present where Mallory convinces Kate to confront the stuff with Martin, and obviously he's now dead, but like go to his grave, and she's got like this teddy bear or something, which is what she won at the store that day. So that sort of connects them, because that's obviously one of her first times really talking to him, and again the continued sort of manipulation. I can't actually remember the dates or whether this one was set like before or after some of the other stuff we've seen, but in any case it's obviously an early sort of well, actually I'll get to it, but this is actually appears to be when she's adopted by him. So obviously that fairground scene and that fairground day is very memorable for the wrong reasons for her. So yeah, what I'm saying is, what we see is that Jeanette has this scrunchie of Kate in the past, and Kate has this like teddy bear from that day at the fair, and those things sort of connect to each other, where the two main characters both have these objects which were you know, they sort of picked up from that day. So as a visual thing it works really well. And yeah, the episode sort of ends with Kate sort of unleashing and going to Martin's gravestone, and just like burying the teddy bear, I think, just as like a metaphor, just as a way to confront him. And it's something Mallory talks her into. And again, I do like the connection with Mallory and Kate. I think Mallory is still very murky when it comes to, can Kate trust her and what's her motive. Certainly Kate's mother is very sus when it comes to Mallory. She doesn't trust her and thinks she probably wrote that note, sent that note that said liar sort of thing. But in any case, I'm definitely liking the friendship with Mallory and Kate. I think there's some good stuff in there. But yeah, the episode definitely paints this pattern and builds a picture. And it does lead to this scene in like... before I get there, actually, I'll talk about Kate and Jamie, because boy is Jamie the worst in this episode. Because Kate has it out with him about the kiss with Jeanette, and obviously she saw them, so there's no real grey area over it. And he just is the worst, because he tries to convince her that, well, you know, you're traumatized having been in that basement, your memory is maybe acting up. And like, to a certain extent, like, he wasn't terrible until he started trying to use that excuse. You know, just fess up, just say it was a kiss, it happened, but I still love you, that kind of thing. But to actually try and come up with an excuse like, oh, you might have been seeing things, and blatantly like blame it on that, just terrible, Jamie, just terrible. So in any case, that sort of puts, you know, a thing on that, and that's when Kate sort of storms off, and it leads to this scene in like this sort of like the fun house, the monster house, whatever the name of it is, where they're sort of going about like mazes and stuff, and you've got the mirrors, it's that one basically. And this is a good example again of what the show does well, because for a while I thought this scene was sort of more funny and a little bit goofy, because Jeanette sees Kate, you know, going towards this thing, this house, this, you know, this, whatever it's called, I can't remember the actual name, but terror house, I'll say. And she follows her and keeps following her, and Kate just doesn't want to talk to her. She doesn't want to confront her. So it becomes the scene where Jeanette's trying to catch up with Kate in the house, in the set thing, and Kate just tries to avoid her. But again, credit, because there's a twist in the tale, because what happens is when Kate has like gotten rid of Jeanette, out of nowhere Martin appears and just like frightens her out of nowhere, and we cut away after that. So I think it's fair to say this is probably where he adopted Kate. He just took that opportunity, saw her going in, and just picked his moment. So again, really good writing, really good direction, the way that scene was shot, and out of nowhere it does become something sort of more darker and disturbing. And I don't think this episode really puts a foot wrong. Maybe a small nitpick is some of the stuff with Cindy, like Jeanette's mother, her being an alcoholic is a little bit stereotypical and on the nose, but it's, it's whatever. I mean, it's quite believable, and I think the good thing is that everything sort of connects. I think we do see this background to why Greg, the father, is very now down on Jeanette in the present, and did, leave Cindy. The stuff with her drinking in the middle of the day, she's sort of being very negative. But the stuff with Jeanette, especially because in the present, he says, I'm basically broke. I lost my job. I've lost my marriage because of all this. Now, you could argue he goes a bit far, and that maybe, on the surface at least, he's being a bit unfair to Jeanette. But whatever you want to say, I think it sort of goes into his motivations at least. And I think this episode gets a good balance, because there are lighter moments as well, and those lighter moments are well handled and feel natural, because we actually see Greg meeting Angela for the first time, and it's in in Vincent's video store, and this is obviously one of those TV coincidences that you sort of have characters meeting for the first time in a video store where you've got obviously one of the other main characters working and stuff, but it's this small town thing as well, so it doesn't feel too forced. But I do enjoy the scene actually, because Angela is new in town. She comes in, and Greg is like, I can't remember. No, I think it's Angela actually. She's like accidentally bashed into Greg's car. Because she comes in second when Greg's already in the store and apologises stuff, and he's like, "Oh no, don't worry, it was an accident." And you can tell there's a little bit of a spark straight away between them. But what happens is she obviously mentions that she's new in town and like looking for a house and stuff, and of course he happens to be a landlord, so that's kind of the way he introduces himself. That's pretty smart, you gotta say, that assuming then that's what he was going for as a way to like maybe get to know her, then that's pretty smart. I mean, it could have just been that it's a way for him to get more business, but it's probably a mix of the two, to be fair. I like to think that he liked her and wanted to get to know her, but also it is another business contact, so it's probably a mix between the two. But I think credit to the actor and the writing, because when he delivers a line where he says, well, if you ever need someone or something, and he holds out his card, and it's a little bit cheesy, but it's cheesy in that like salesman pitch sort of way, which I'm sure they do like in real life. So I didn't really mind, and because I quite like Greg and he seemed like quite sincere, he didn't feel too over the top and sleazy with it. So I didn't mind it. The line and the delivery sort of worked, but yeah, this is a good episode in sort of bringing these different like stuff together from the past and giving you a good idea of why the characters are where they are in the present. So there's that stuff, and there's also some good stuff with Angela and Jeanette, with them starting to bond, and how Angela is there, and again a small stereotype, but it's not really a problem because again it feels quite true to life. But she does take a, because she obviously like works at the bar, and she does take her to the bar to hang out, and again very responsible because she makes sure that she has like non-alcoholic sort of drink. But it's this idea, I think, of Angela as like a younger, almost mother figure that then looks out for Jeanette and is responsible, but she also relates to Jeanette a bit more, and can say, you know, Jeanette, you've been through a lot, let your hair down and stuff. And that's what this scene is, where she's talking to her on the level, but at the same time being honest and stuff, but at the same time they're having a bit of fun. It's two girls, you know, who well, I think there is a bit of an age gap, but it's not massive. Angela's like young enough where she can relate to Jeanette. I think like Angela's meant to be late 20s, early 30s, something like that. Could be a bit older, but I mean certainly young enough to maybe have a bit more of a connection to Jeanette. So, and they obviously sing karaoke. It's a way for Jeanette to let her sort of rage and emotions out and just let her hair down. So it's a well done scene as well. And that's mostly the episode. I thought it was a really good episode, really strong stuff. I like the connection with the stuff in the past and the present at the fairground, and what it means for the characters. So really natural. I think the way it captures teenage life, but then it merges that with like the thriller aspect and the mystery stuff and the other character drama. Really nicely done. I think if this continues for the next, obviously, 5 episodes, because we're halfway through the season now, or I am, then I think this is going to be one of the shows of the year. It's really hitting all the beats pretty much on point. So that's my review of Cruel Summer, episode 5. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe. You can also share me out on social media. That helps a lot, so thanks for that. Helps to get more eyeballs on the channel. Also, you can ding the bell on YouTube, and that'll like notify you when I go live for a live stream or when a new video goes up. And before I go, just a few things I'll promote coming up. So this week, well, I do regular live streams. I do, obviously, some of you will know I do a weekly quiz stream. So last week I did Disney for the quiz, which I think went down quite well. A few of you on for that. And this coming Thursday, sticking in the same sort of area, animation, but animation in general, sort of outside of Disney. So that'll be the quiz this week. Also, when it comes to slightly older TV shows, I've been doing Gilmore Girls slowly, working my way through those. So I have my next Gilmore Girls review on the way, which I'm excited about because it's a really cool episode I'll be reviewing next time. I'm at the start of season 2 with that. And just switching to movies, obviously recently I started doing horror movies weekly with Rachel McDonald, my new tag team partner on the channel, and we're sort of doing franchise movies and different things, all things horror hopefully. And this coming week we will continue with the Halloween franchise. It will be Halloween Part 2, the sequel to the original. So that's coming up, lots of stuff for you guys to look forward to. But I'll be back with the next episode of Cruel Intentions. See how that happens. Cruel Summer soon. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.